Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Nach On Bucs. I am your host, Anthony Nachreiner. Today's video, we're going to take a look at what Colin Cowherd has to say about the NFC South.
That division, the NFC South has been probably the weakest division in football 10 of the last 20 years. It's like the SEC. I don't know what it is. Is there less revenue to fans care less? Are the owners not very good? It's just not a very good division. It's just, some of it too, John, is passion. There have been down years, but the Giants have Super Bowls. Washington has Super Bowls. The Eagles have Super Bowls. All these teams, the Cowboys, the Eagles, that division cares because college football is irrelevant in the Northeast outside of maybe Penn State.
For sure.
I do think in the South, Saturday is such a big day that it's just, there's not, if you listen to sports talk radio on a Monday, they're not crushing the NFL team. They're ripping their SEC head coach and quarterback. And I do think there's it just doesn't feel as big.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right here with Colin Cowherd's take. As the NFC South, 10 out of the last 20 years, one of the worst divisions in the NFL, that is a terrible take. All right, the NFC South, the last 2 years hasn't been great. Not exactly stellar quarterback play, again, across the division. New Orleans doesn't quite have it figured out with Derek Carr. Bryce Young, we don't know if he's going to get it. And at the same time, Atlanta's had Desmond Ridder, and they've gone back and forth with Taylor Heineke and Marcus Mariota. So clearly the division is not as strong as others when it comes to the quarterback position. And we know how this quarterback-driven league can be when you don't have a quarterback. So I'll give Colin that the last 2 years, the NFC South hasn't been very good. You can go back to 2014 when the Carolina Panthers won the NFC South with a losing record. Fine, I'll give you that. 3 years. 3 years out of the 20 or so that we've had since realignment, and also 24, or coming up on 24 since 2000. Let's take a look at the NFC South. Tampa Bay and Carolina back-to-back years went to Super Bowls. Carolina didn't win theirs, Tampa Bay did. New Orleans went to a Super Bowl in 2009, they won it. All right, you go then to the Carolina Panthers again in 2015 against the Denver Broncos, didn't quite win it. You go to the Atlanta Falcons in 2016, nothing has to be said about that. I'm sorry to bring up painful memories to you Atlanta Falcons fans. 28-3, we know how that goes. All right, the New Orleans Saints went to NFC Championship games in that time period, and then we know what happened with Tampa Bay and Tom Brady in 2020. All right. So this idea that the NFC South has just been absolute garbage for 10 out of the last 20 years is completely made up. And if you look at the last 10 years, the NFC South has had 3 of its 4 members in the Super Bowl. It's had all 4 members reach an NFC Championship game in the last 10 years. All right? So I don't understand where Colin Cowherd is getting this take from where this division is so bad. And this is one of those times where I think that Colin Cowherd just didn't do his homework on the NFC South. And it's proven to where his biases are. He loves the SEC, but doesn't care about the NFL teams in the South. That is very, very evident and very, very clear. So, and if you can also even listen to that last little comment he said, maybe he's like, well, the media just doesn't care. The media doesn't care. Those 4 markets are not top 50 markets. They're not going to draw eyeballs. That's why we don't get a whole lot of mention. The Atlanta Falcons were a hot news topic for a couple of weeks after the draft just because of the whole Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix deal. But outside of that, even Tampa signs Antoine Winfield Jr., that's a blip on the news because all of a sudden the NFL media is on to something else. So this is more about where the media bias is versus where the actual division is. Because if you want to compare the NFC South to the NFC East, or what I like to call the NFC least, the NFC South wins hands down. Yes, the Giants have 2 Super Bowls. The Eagles have been to 2 Super Bowls, and they've been to 3 Super Bowls since realignment, but they've lost 2 out of 3. They got their first Super Bowl victory, obviously, against the Patriots. So this idea where Colin Cowherd even thinks that you can compare the NFC South to the NFC East in the last 20 years. Yes, if you talk about the history of the NFL and you talk about the NFC East, obviously the Cowboys, Washington, the Eagles, the Giants, they have multiple Super Bowls. But if we're going to spend the time on the last 20 years, the NFC East has been a joke. Dallas hasn't gotten even close to the NFC Championship game. Let's not even get into Washington and their problems, obviously. And yeah, the Giants had a couple of good runs, and the Philadelphia Eagles, right now, they're good, and they've had good runs before as well. They got 1 Super Bowl. Tampa's got 2. New Orleans has got 1 championship. Carolina's been to 2 Super Bowls. Atlanta's been to 2 Super Bowls. This division's pretty stacked. The NFC South is one of two divisions to go along with the NFC West, where all four members have been to a Super Bowl. And we're talking about since realignment. The NFC East can't claim that. So, again, I'm not a big fan of all the other teams in the NFC South, but at the same time, I'm also going to defend this division because this division isn't one of the worst divisions in 10 of the last 20 years. This is the Nach On Bucs. I am your host, Anthony Nachreiner. Please hit the like and subscribe button, and go Bucs.